All right, today we're diving into a really fascinating text, Manly P. Hall's The Lost Keys of Freemasonry. But I want you to forget everything you think you know about secret societies and handshakes. See, Hall isn't giving us some kind of historical expose here. He's inviting us on this incredibly deep, symbolic journey into the self, and he's using Freemasonry as this powerful spiritual allegory to guide us. Right from the jump, Hall tells us that to really get what he's saying, we can't take things literally. We have to look past the surface, at the symbols and the rituals, and ask, okay, what does this really mean on a deeper, personal level? And that whole process starts by redefining the most basic term of all. So before we can even begin to understand the journey, we have to understand the traveler, right? So what is a Mason in this symbolic sense that Hall is talking about? Well, the answer has nothing to do with being a member of a lodge. It's something way, way more universal. Now, this definition, wow, it's pretty powerful because it immediately frames the Mason as a seeker, a quester. The foreign lands he's talking about, they aren't actual places on a map. They're the uncharted territories inside of ourselves. And that search for the word, well, that's the universal human quest for truth, for meaning, for that little piece of the divine that feels like it's missing from our lives. Okay, so this leads us to the absolute core concept of Hall's entire interpretation. The huge, grand project of Freemasonry, the whole story about building King Solomon's temple, is actually a massive metaphor for the single most important job any of us will ever have: building our own character, constructing the temple of our own soul. This is where the whole journey kicks off, and honestly, it's a concept that feels incredibly modern. We all start out as what Hall calls the rough ashlar, basically an uncut, imperfect stone. It represents our raw, undeveloped potential. You can think of it as the ultimate self-improvement project. The goal, this great work, is to slowly and carefully chip away at our own ignorance, our flaws, and polish ourselves into a perfect stone, something worthy of being part of a divine, universal temple. So, Hall lays out this whole transformation process using the 3 classic degrees of Masonry. But you've got to think of these less like ranks you achieve and more like stages of your own personal and spiritual growth. Let's take a look at the very first step. All right, first up, the journey kicks off with the entered apprentice. This is ground zero. It's the foundational stage where the builder has to learn how to work with the most basic, tangible materials of life itself. The apprentice's work is all very concrete, very hands-on. It's about mastering your own physical body, treating it like a temple. It's about learning through doing, through disciplined action and real labor. And at this stage, you don't get to question the blueprints. Your job is to learn to execute the plan perfectly, building this solid foundation of self-control that everything else is going to be built upon. So, once that physical foundation is solid, the work starts to turn inward. The journey of the fellow craft is all about shifting focus from mastering the outer world to mastering the inner world, the world of emotion. This is where the real alchemy happens, It's all about transmutation. You take raw, uncurbed motion, which Hall calls a ruffian, and you see it for what it is, a destructive force. The whole task of the fellow craft is to take that exact same fiery energy and just refine it. That unchecked passion gets transformed into conscious compassion. Those destructive outbursts are channeled into poised, constructive power. It's really about learning to master this inner fire instead of letting it burn you down. And that leads us to the final and really the most profound step, the Master Mason. This stage deals with the mastery of the mind, and it all culminates in a symbolic death and rebirth, which is told through the central story, the central allegory of the entire craft. So the whole story here revolves around the temple's master architect, a guy named Hiram Abith. He's the one who holds the secrets, the master's word, the ultimate truth. But just as his great work, the temple, is about to be finished, a tragedy strikes. Yeah, he's struck down. The keeper of the light, the master builder, is killed by the very people who were supposed to be helping him build. So now the temple is left unfinished and the word is lost. But the real mystery here isn't just what happened, but who was responsible. According to the legend, 3 of Hiram's own workmen conspire to steal his secrets, and when he refuses to give them up, they murder him. But in Hall's allegorical reading, these killers are not historical figures. Nope, they are something much, much closer to home. The 3 murderers are the dark side of our own nature.
You've got perverted thought. That's the mind being used for ignorance and destruction. Then there's uncurbed desire, the untamed passions from the fellow craft stage. And finally, destructive action, which is just the physical result of those inner flaws. See, together, they represent the ignorance within each of us that murders our own inner divinity, our own grand master.
So you see, this whole story isn't really about an ancient murder. It's about a spiritual process happening inside you. The Master Mason degree is all about confronting these three ruffians within yourself. And the symbolic resurrection of Hiram, well, that's your own spiritual rebirth. It's the moment your higher self, your spirit, is finally liberated from the tomb of your own ignorance. So now that we've walked through these three stages of self-development, Hall hits us with the ultimate lost key. He takes this entire philosophy and expands it beyond the walls of any single organization, and he makes it a truly universal path for everyone. This one quote, just changes the entire game. Hall is basically declaring that the true definition of a Mason has nothing to do with being on a membership list. It's about action. It's a way of life. Anyone, from any background, who consciously works to improve themselves and serve a higher purpose is, in spirit, living the Masonic life. And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. The lodge isn't some building, it's the entire universe. The real work isn't a secret ritual, it's the daily labor of building a better, more noble character. And the true brotherhood isn't some exclusive club, it's the recognition that there's a divine spark in all of humanity. These principles are for everybody. So in the end, Hall's message is that this whole great quest doesn't lead to some secret vault or a hidden treasure map. The search for the lost word, for that ultimate truth, it ends right where it began, inside you. The entire allegory is a roadmap to the soul. So the only question left is the one it asks each of us. What will you find and what will you build inside your own temple?